Hi everyone, this is another video about methylene blue. Seems to be a favorite topic that folks post lots of comments and questions about, especially on my YouTube channel. So more than happy to answer some of those questions. Just before I jump into the crux of the video, if you don't mind taking a quick second to please like or share or subscribe or post a quick comment on this video, I'd really appreciate it. So thanks in advance for taking a second to do that. And also, as per usual, nothing I'm saying should be construed as medical advice. This is for informational purposes only. If you need medical advice, please talk to your healthcare provider to get that advice. So there were a couple of questions, just going to bring them up here. So one of them was, can I confirm whether taking DMSO and or melatonin might cause issues regarding serotonin? Thanks if you're able to help. So this was a question that was posted on one of my other videos about methylene blue. Basically, the punchline was being very cautious combining methylene blue with anything that increases serotonin levels in the brain. Because there can be, it can basically have a methylene blue also increases serotonin levels in the brain, and too much serotonin is not a good thing. It's our, happy-go-lucky, feel-good neurotransmitter, but too much of anything, I suppose, is not good, and that is definitely true of serotonin. So with DMSO being linked to serotonin, I'm not aware of any link between DMSO and serotonin. I'm not saying one doesn't exist. I've just never heard of one, and I can't think off the top of my head how they might be related. If the person asking this question or anyone else knows about this, by all means, please feel free to post any reference to that in the comment section. I'd be happy to learn about that. Melatonin, on the other hand, we do have to be a bit cautious with melatonin because melatonin is derived from serotonin. So the body takes this amino acid tryptophan, it runs through several reactions. One of the steps along the way turns it into something called 5-hydroxytryptophan, or 5-HTP for short, which folks listening, you might recognize that as the name of a type of supplement that one can find on a health food store shelf or whatnot. And then 5-HTP gets converted into serotonin, and then some of that serotonin gets converted into melatonin. And that is a two-way reaction. So some melatonin can get converted into serotonin. Now, I've had all of one patient out of my years and years of practice, having seen, thousands of patients, and many of those have been on either medications that increase serotonin, or they have been on melatonin, or maybe a combination of both. And I've only had one patient where it seemed that the melatonin may have triggered a serotonin syndrome. I had many other patients where they're sometimes on robust, i.e. high dosages, like fulminant dosages of pharmaceutical medications that increase serotonin, or maybe they've been on fairly robust doses of 5-HTP or St. John's wort or various other things that increase serotonin, and I have not seen an issue with even fairly robust dosages of melatonin. I'm not going to get into specific dosages because I don't want anything that I say to be construed as offering medical advice, but I guess the long story short is the amount of melatonin that I oftentimes recommend for my patients is in line with that which is used in oncology trials, which has, in my opinion, shown that fairly high doses of melatonin are quite safe to use even for the long term, but it's usually dosages that are quite a bit higher than what folks would typically take for treating insomnia. So the punchline is that I found that melatonin, even at fairly high, robust dosages, has been very safe with folks who are taking other medications or supplements that would boost up their serotonin levels. With that being said, I always ask my patients to start with a lower dose of melatonin and gradually increase it. And sometimes along the way, folks don't feel they don't feel fantastic. They might have some, what I perceive as detoxification symptoms, or maybe some excessive serotonin symptoms, and maybe some of that has to do with there being too much serotonin kicking around. But generally, I found it to be quite safe. So when I have patients who are working with melatonin, I'm thinking about prescribing methylene blue. I always start, depending on which one they started first. If they're already on the methylene blue, I would have them gradually increase their melatonin if I thought that was indicated. Conversely, if they were already on melatonin, I have them gradually increase their methylene blue. But I would do that whether they were on melatonin or not. I'm a big fan of starting low, building up, build up a dose over the span of a week. It doesn't waste a lot of time, and it just can save a lot of flare-up discomfort and heartache. Moving on to the next question here. So this one's a little bit longer. So it says here, I seem to have no response to methylene blue at all. I've experimented with dosages from 2.5 milligrams to 5 to 10 to 16 milligrams and more, and still have no notable elevated levels of energy or mental acuity or changes in mood. And in fact, I might feel a little tired after taking methylene blue. So there's not really a question there, but I just wanted to quickly comment that, there's different forms of methylene blue, and that, I mean, methylene blue is methylene blue, but it can come in just straight capsules. It could be sublingual lozenges. It could be in a liposomal form. Of course, could be intravenous. So the dosage is in the form is likely going to make a difference in terms of how it makes a person feel. But some folks just don't feel better from methylene blue. I've recommended methylene blue to a number of folks who are generally healthy. They just want to try it because, you know, they heard about it on some biohacking podcast or whatnot, and they give it a try. And a lot of folks who already feel good don't, in my experience, don't really feel better working with methylene blue. And I'm unfortunately, well, I mean, it is what it is. I'm one of them. You know, I've worked hard on my health. I've worked hard on my health, resolved my chronic health issues, thankfully, and I feel really good day to day. It's not without putting in elbow grease with diet and lifestyle and exercise and this, that, and the other thing. But I've taken methylene blue, and like I don't really feel any different on it myself either. So it's something where if a person already feels too good, they're already too healthy, it might not really help. But if a person needs more antioxidants for one reason or another, it can make a big difference. And of course, there are folks who are generally healthy and they're biohacking their way to feeling even better, and they do feel good on methylene blue. But it's definitely not like it's not the type of substance where I think to myself, oh, you're already feeling healthy, I think there's a good chance you're going to start feeling like Superman or Superwoman. It does happen for some folks, but not for everyone, unfortunately. So the question was, I wonder if it's safe to take methylene blue long term with a tyramine-rich diet, since it is an MAOI, i.e. a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, and a hypertensive crisis. Doesn't sound like fun. No, I imagine it's not fun. I've never had one, never want to have one. For context, so some foods are higher in the substance called tyramine, tomato. Tyramine is something that when it's consumed can stimulate the release of more norepinephrine, which is one of our neurotransmitters, and the MAO enzyme is required to break down tyramine break down norepinephrine. When people take drugs or potentially supplements that inhibit the MAO enzyme, i.e. it's an MAOI and MAO inhibitor, then it can lead to the body's left not being able to break down that norepinephrine, and too much tyramine consumption could lead to a hypertensive crisis because too much norepinephrine will jack up the blood pressure, and if it can't be brought down, it can cause a hypertensive crisis, and it's really, really serious. So it's a great question. I mean, at the end of the day, tyramine-rich foods, like, unless a person's really like chowing down on, you know, cured meats and smoked meats and lots of alcohol and things like that, which some people do. In my experience, not a lot of folks just naturally eat a super high tyramine diet, but I think it is something that definitely warrants some caution. To my understanding, methylene blue is not a terribly strong MAOI, so I don't know that it's a notable concern, but it is a really good question and something to bear in mind. It's just another reason why I recommend to my patients starting low, building up gradually, and making sure that they're tolerating things well. But it is a really good question, and it's definitely something I think would deserve some definitely some caution around that. I think would be certainly warranted. But a high tyramine diet, I don't know if a lot of folks would be able to tolerate that well, because it's something that courts, you know, gout attacks and things like that. But if folks are doing well on a high tyramine diet, then all the power to them, and they might want to be a bit more cautious with phasing in something like methylene blue. Thank you for the questions. I hope that this answered the questions. If there's any other questions on this topic or anything else, just post it in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer as soon as I can.